The guys who lived in the streets, a lot of them went the wrong way, incarcerated, or been killed. But the most successful dudes are the dudes that lived in the streets.
We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Jeezy Jenkins, and you may just know him as Jeezy.
Grammy-nominated, multi-platinum recording superstar, entrepreneur, philanthropist, Jeezy!
When you come from the streets, you either fall to the wayside or you become great at survival and evolution. You have this insight that most people don't have, meaning that you can perform well in chaos. The trailer that we grew up in was no bigger than the studio room. I'll never forget it. Like, my whole mindset switched from being a kid to survival. I gotta figure this out, because if I don't figure it out, this will be my life for the rest of my life.
You sold millions of records. You've literally collaborated with like the best of the best, which makes you one of them.
Jay-Z used to be from the streets as well. I didn't look at him as an artist. I looked at him as somebody that I can learn how to survive from. I never seen anybody else grow up in this and keep their integrity and build their brand. That's what I wanted to learn from Jay. I brought Kanye West out at this thing that we call a birthday bash. It's like the biggest show in Atlanta. It's like 20, 30,000 people. He never been in front of that many people that are like street people. You know what I'm saying? He said, there's a way you talk to them where they feel like, okay, he's with us. I was able to do that in a way that they understood that that was my win. I was selling millions of records, some of the biggest artists in the world, but I was at the lowest point of my life. I was depressed and didn't know what depression was. I just knew that all I had to do was keep drinking and keep smoking, and that's how I was gonna deal with this. And it wasn't until my third album, which was The Recession, that I woke up and I was just like, hold up, I'm not in prison, I'm alive, and I got a chance to be a superstar. Let me embrace that. I don't consider myself a rapper. I consider myself a man that's on the journey of healing, on the journey of learning, on the journey of understanding. I'm not gonna just be a great musician. I want people to understand this is what a grown man from the struggle is supposed to look like. You take your wounds and you make it wisdom.
Hey, it's Mylett. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask you to please subscribe to the show. If you just click the subscribe button here, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. At the same time, if you're subscribed, you're going to get access to the programs before anybody else in the world gets access to them. So if you would, click subscribe right here. Thanks so much. Welcome back, everybody. I've been talking to this man about having him on the show here for, I don't know, like 6 or 8 months. And you would think, well, you want to have him on because he's this, Grammy-nominated artist that everybody knows. And that's not really why I wanted him on. I wanted him on because this man has dimension and depth. He's a really unique person because he's obviously very talented, sold millions and millions of records, but he's got this dimension and depth because of his life experience and because of his work on himself in personal development. He's also got a book out called Adversity for Sale, and it's really, really good. I read the entire thing in 2 days. So, Jeezy J. Jenkins, welcome to the show.
What's up? How you doing, my brother?
It's so good to have you, and I'm doing very well.
It's an honor to be here, man.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have you.
I listen to your show every morning. Well, I do, you put episodes out like every couple of days, so I check you out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I told him off camera, I said, I'm going to ask you stuff that's going to push you today.
Right.
Because there's things I want to understand about life and how things intersect and are connected. So,
okay.
Some of it will be in the book, some of it won't be.
Oh, good.
So you had an interesting upbringing. Those of you who don't know, kind of a military upbringing. So you lived in Japan for a while. You've seen the world as a young man.
Yeah, Japan, Hawaii.
Hawaii too, right? So abroad, right? Not in the mainland. And we're going to get to that a little bit. And by the way, crazy upbringing had I think your mom pulled a gun on you at one point.
Yes, she absolutely did.
We need to get to that. But you end up kind of like living in the streets, so to speak. There's a point in your life where you're really living in the streets.
Right.
And I had different guys on the show. Like, I didn't live in the streets, but I grew up with dudes who lived in the streets because I lived really close to those guys. So I went to a school where like half the dudes lived in the streets and half of us kind of lived in the suburbs. And here's what's interesting now that life's happened. Now I'm 52 years old. The guys who lived in the streets, a lot of them went the wrong way, incarcerated, or have been killed. But the most successful dudes, the few, are the dudes that lived in the streets,
right? Not
the dudes who lived on the good side of the tracks. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense though when you think about it.
Why?
Because when you're coming from the streets, like you have this, you're living for survival, right? and you're navigating. You're actually navigating life. Like I just came back from a fishing trip, and I was telling you. But when you look at that, there's nobody out there that's teaching those guys how to be fishermen or to be captains, right? It's something you see, you adapt to it, you understand, you grow through it, and you just become great at it. And when you come from the streets, you either fall to the wayside or you become great at survival and evolution. And as time goes on, you just get in these different situations and these different rooms that enable you to be your best version of yourself, which is a survivor. And as time goes, you start seeing different goals that you want to accomplish, and some of those goals take you into a wealthy space, right? Because the average street guy, his whole, the good ones, the smart ones, by the way, because you have some people that's in the streets and they stay and they end up there and
they just stay knuckleheads.
Yeah, and it's all bad. But you have some people who understand that the streets is a stepping stone, as you will. Like for me, for myself, like I knew that the streets, I knew I couldn't walk from the streets into a boardroom. So I had to figure out that path, and that path came with me understanding who I was, where I was going, and then what can I put in the middle of that to give me some, to put me in a place where my reputation is solid, right?
Yeah.
As far as like business, because I made good money in the streets. I really did. You know, I ran a Fortune 500 company, you know what I'm saying? Tax-free, but I did that.
Right.
And I saved my money, and I did good things, but I know I couldn't just walk into a boardroom just straight from the street. So that's when music came about, because I like, if I can figure this out, right, I can get credibility, and I can take this newfound stardom and figure my way into business, because I don't think a lot of people know that music is my talent, but business has always been my passion. Yeah. That's why I wanted to end up
You
there.
love business more than you love music. Is
Absolutely.
that fair to say?
Yeah, 1,000%, because I enjoy music and I love it, but I was never the kind of guy that grew up with a notepad writing lyrics or being in a band. I wasn't musically inclined. I just listened to music to learn.
That blows my mind.
Right. You know, because that's how I learned. It was like I listened to Tupac. I kind of learned the rules from the streets from there. But to answer your question, it's just like when you come in and you're coming from the streets, you have this insight that most people don't have, meaning that you can perform well in chaos.
Yes. Okay.
And I started to understand that. So as I got into business, that was my gift, because these things would happen and people want to keep their job, they want to keep their position. You know, they're emotionally tied to this. I'm not. I'm a problem solver. That's my gift. So all I got to do is sit back and look at it and go, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and be assertive about it, because I do believe that that's the solution for this, right? Because I came up in a place where I don't want to hit a problem, I want to hit a solution, right? Yeah. And if you know, the consequences are dire, so you play a little bit better. What's the game? The Squid Games. It's like it's like in the streets, you're gonna either die, or go to jail, or you're gonna be one of the 1% that make it out, right?
So, by the way, that's one of the best answers on the show ever, and I'm like really glad I asked you that question. I've always wondered this. So, Master P sat right there,
right,
and we had a similar conversation off camera,
right.
And I said, "Why you? Like, why do you think you got out and other guys didn't?" And so you said a few things. One is his ability to learn to survive,
right,
ability to operate in chaos,
right.
Let me ask you one other thing. I think just like millions of people want to know the answers, because you always hear this now that hip-hop's become so popular the last 20, 30 years, the streets.
Right.
And it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing like someone lives in this environment.
Right.
You think about your own children. You're a 12, 13-year-old young boy.
Right.
And basically the way that I read your upbringing is there became this point where really you didn't have a lot of rules governing you in the home. You could kind of go out as late as you wanted. And so you're seeing these guys that become mentors to you. What makes someone become a leader in the street? So I get that you function, because so far, change the word streets and call it business.
Right.
And guess what?
101.
Someone who wins in business has this unbelievable ability to survive through all of the lean years. And they have a crazy ability to operate in chaos that most people don't have. In fact, I don't have a lot of abilities, but one of the things I always say is, one of the things I hold my hat on is I operate well in chaos. Right. Now, there's a negative to it that somehow I keep wanting to produce more chaos in my life because I'm so comfortable in it. By the way, you got a little of that bug too. No matter how things go, I'm going to find a way to create chaos.
It gets cool. I'm like, oh.
I'm not comfortable when things are comfortable.
Right, because it almost feels like you know something's going to come. But to your point, when you ask how do someone become a leader?
Yes.
it's funny because Master P was he was my therapist before
Really?
I even knew who he was. Because I listened to him and I watched him and I saw him move. Because you got to think, coming from where we come from, those are the only entrepreneurs we really knew that were very successful. You know, all our parents were either hustlers or worked in factories. My mom cleaned houses. You know, just minimum wage stuff. But then you see in Master P and these guys, and he's mobilizing all these people and putting them in positions, you know, to live out their dreams. And you sit back and you go, okay, that's a leader. And then you see someone like Tupac, who's a revolutionary. He's going against the grain of the fabric of what they're telling us where we're from. Like, you can't be this, you can't do that. He's going against all that grain. And that, to me, that's a leader. You know what I'm saying? So these are the people that I'm listening to every day because they're my therapists at this point. Right?
So interesting.
And so like how people listen to you as a podcast, some people like just to be entertained, but you have some people out there who's listening to your show that are hanging on your every word because they know that you know the way, so they would consider you a leader. And the thing I learned at an early age is I didn't mind sitting down being a fly on the wall listening to the older guys. You know, the uncles, the cousins, you know, just the guys in the neighborhood. And a lot of my peers didn't see the value in being around older people. It's kind of like, oh, it's, you know, that's your uncle, it's your granddad. But older people always had that wisdom and that knowledge. And I had a thirst for it at a young age because when I came back from living abroad, I started, because my palate was different. I was eating sushi, you know what I'm saying? I was eating tuna nigiri, and you know what I'm saying, yellowtail. And now they're throwing me back in the hood, and my palate's different. I done seen the world, and it's, you know, I know there's beaches and there's all these things out there, and I got to go back to this town with the population that's 3,000, maybe 32 on a good day. I mean, we got two red lights, you know, and I'm trying to explain to my friends in school, like, yo, there's beaches out there, there's, you know, there's this and that, and everybody's kind of like, what are you talking about?
Never seen these things
right
in person.
So it sounded like you was, you know, just making all this up. And I got in my mind at that moment that I have to get back to that because that's my life. And the reason why that life was taken away from me is because my parents separated and divorced. My dad was in the service, so my mom went back to the hometown, and my dad continued to, you know, do his tour as a staff sergeant in the Marines. Staff sergeant. Yeah, and so when we went back to there, you know, of course, my mom had her things and all that stuff going on, and it's crazy, Ed, because the trailer that we grew up in was no bigger than the studio room. And it was, I paid $3,500 for it, right? Wow. And that's what we lived in. Wow. You know, my room was probably, you know, the size of a bathroom in a like, you know, you can barely even breathe in there, right? And for me, that was reality. So it's like you taken out of this life where you got all this opportunity and you put in this place. And I'll never forget it. Like, my whole mindset switched from being a kid to survival. I gotta survive. I gotta figure this out, because if I don't figure it out, this will be my life for the rest of my life.
Unbelievable.
Right.
This explains to me, I really introduce you the way that I view you. There's a dimension and a depth to you. And now that I'm understanding your life story a little bit more, it's because there was dimension and depth to your early life.
Right.
Like, you really had two really different lives when you were a very young man. And now you had multiple lives as an adult.
Right.
The other thing you have after meeting you, it's the thing that I have in all my friends that I admire the most. And then I'm just unpacking for everyone success traits. Because I really believe, to a large extent, the streets, so to speak, which I don't understand, that's why I'm asking you, is a metaphor for life. It's just an exaggerated, compressed metaphor. Right. And you have another thing that I think the guys who make it out, and also women and men who make it in business, have. You have a very unique, nuanced combination of a lot of presence and confidence with a ton of humility still. You're not arrogant. You don't think you know everything. You have a thirst for knowledge. You listen to my stuff. Right? You read. You still have that thing. That is a combination. You show me someone with a bunch of humility and they're humble with no confidence, I'm show you someone life's going to run their ass over. Right. You show me somebody with a ton of, and you've seen this in your business too, ton of confidence but no humility, they eventually believe too much of their own press clippings. You agree with that?
Yeah,
they eventually they crap out because they don't have humility. They don't want to keep growing and learning. They think they know everything. They think they're never going to lose or make a mistake.
Well, that's the issue because, you know, I've learned, and that's one of the reasons why I really wrote the book, because I wanted people to understand that I was selling millions of records, like millions and millions of records, right? Some of the biggest artists in the world, Rihanna, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Mariah Carey, all these different people. But I was at the lowest point of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was at the lowest point of my life.
You look at photos, you can kind of tell, right?
Yeah.
Explain.
Because, you know, God works in mysterious ways. It's just like, he helped me figure out that this was the thing for me. I kind of got forced into it because I tried to do what Master P did in the beginning. Is I tried to sign people and put people on. I wanted to be the CEO, the boss, so to speak, and it didn't work that way. And I was left with a studio, no artist, and, you know, not a lot of money, right? So I had to figure it out myself, and I began to do music myself, but because I always had a love for it, and I started to work my way through that. And what I realized is, like, I wanted to bring everybody that I could, because that's just what you're told, right? You're told that you got to keep it real. Like, you got to be, and that's what I went by, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what's in my heart, to do the right thing. And when I started to get some success in it, and started to move around the world and see different things, now, mind you, the life that I was living before that was serious, like serious.
What do you
like,
mean?
Put it this way, everybody that I was running with either got life for 30 years, which was probably one of the biggest stories since, since El Chapo. You know,
And you were waiting to get arrested yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, everyone around me is going down.
Oh, I was dependent on it. Like, I had it in my mind. Like, I got myself. When I walked out the door, I made sure that I was looking good, because if I felt like if they got me, I just had to look the part. And you got to think I'm selling millions of records, and I'm waiting to go to prison in my mind.
That is crazy to me.
And I'm drinking, I'm self-soothing, I'm doing all these things, and I was like the most depressed I've ever been, because a lot of those guys that didn't go started to see my success, and this caused an all-out war. So you got to think I'm this hot new artist. I'm moving around the world. I'm doing all these things, but I'm at a real war with real people that have real finances, real resources, and they're state to state. This is not local, right? And I'm dealing with this everywhere I go. So normally when a person goes on the stage and performs in front of, I'm on tour with Jay-Z. You know, we're doing 60,000 people a night. And he has no idea what I'm dealing with. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm like, you know, when I get off the stage, you know, I'm back in Baghdad. I got to get ready for whatever. I got to make sure, like, and I have to move militant, right? So now I got to make sure, because now instead of just being an artist, I have to be, you know, damn near a general. I have to give my troops orders and tell them how to move and what to do and how to, and it's like, this is every day of my life.
You're worried you're going to be a Tupac at
right.
any point. You're going to get incarcerated, or you're going to be a Tupac.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%. And the thing, it took me, and I was depressed and didn't know what depression was, right? Yeah. I had post-traumatic stress and didn't understand what that was. I had a level of anxiety that was unreal. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that all I had to do was keep drinking and keep smoking, and that's how I was going to deal with this. And you talking about somebody who's getting up at 8 a.m. I'm popping a bottle of Cristal. That's how I'm starting breakfast off. You know what I'm saying? By lunchtime, you know, I'm drinking tequila. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, at night, I'm still going out, and I'm doing all these things to self-soothe, but I started to realize that, like, I'm running. And I can't run that fast anymore. Like, I'm thinking I'm getting away, but it's catching up. And it wasn't until my third album, which was The Recession, that I woke up and I was just like, hold up, I'm not in prison, right? I'm alive, and I got a chance to be a superstar. And let me embrace that. So I immediately went in, started YouTubing about health. Now I'm drinking water. I'm exercising, and mind you, I couldn't get a trainer because I don't like to be told what to do. So I was looking at YouTube myself, and I lost 60 pounds.
Yeah, we're gonna put a photo up right now.
Yeah,
for the
I
YouTube.
lost 60 pounds, and it was crazy because I was doing this show for the Recession tour. The first show I had was in Boston, in the House of Blues, and it was funny because normally when I did all my shows, it would be all, and I don't mean this like, you know, like I mean, like, it was in my shows, it was the gangsters, the killers, and the robbers. That was the front row. It was no women. You know what I'm saying? And when I dropped that 60 pounds, Ed, in my first show in Boston, I remember it like it was yesterday. I came out, and by the second song, I looked at my security like, yo, what are you doing? They're throwing stuff on the stage. And he looked at me and said, boss, it's bras and panties and stuff. And I was just like, oh. You know? So I was like, yo, this is different. You know what I'm saying?
It's awesome.
And I promised myself, like, I wasn't going to go back. And then I just started to get on this journey of just trying to, like, I did what I did in the neighborhood, which was start to sit around older people, get outside of my comfort zone, and just have conversations with people who I wouldn't normally have a conversation with.
Yep.
And just ask them questions, because I started to understand they wasn't biased, right?
Yep.
And they would give me honest answers. And I started my journey to healing around that time. Of course, I didn't have, podcasts like yours and stuff like that, but I just was getting little bits and pieces of information and trying to figure it out, right?
Yep.
And that started me on my journey, and that's when I started to really come into my stardom and started to understand. But mind you, the whole time I'm doing this, I'm like, okay, this is cool, but I don't think this is a life for me. Like, I got to figure out how to establish myself as a businessman. Because with this, one thing that I did understand, and I don't think a lot of people understand, is that the music, and the reason why rap was one of the biggest genres last year is because music became the streets, right? And that's why so many people die in it. That's why so many people are incarcerated in it.
Yep.
Because all the street guys, after me, started to figure out Jeezy was in the streets. I know him. I know Lil J. I know he used to be over there. I'm going to do that, right? And so everybody started to get in music. And then next thing you know, the music was more violent than the streets. But I saw that coming, so I'm like, I got to figure out how to do business, because I don't want to go through this again.
Oh, my
right?
gosh.
Right.
Brother, that's striking what you just said.
Yeah.
Because now that you say it, I've obviously observed that happening, but you to be on the inside of that.
Right.
I'm just picturing you walking out, you're touring with Jay-Z in the beginning, and you're looking at the front row, and you don't know if any of these dudes are there for you.
Oh, right.
That night. That's amazing to me.
Right.
And then the fact that dudes like you then brought guys into the business who were already living that type of a life, and it sort of transformed the industry from guys who talked about this stuff to guys who actually lived this stuff.
And this is the trip part. This is where it came in at. I knew early on that I was in a position of leadership, right? I understood that more so than the artist. That's why I never claimed the rapper role. Like, I was like, I got to figure out how to do this to be an example for the people that come from where I come from, because I'm not going to stop here. It's like being in the street. You don't want to start, petty hustling, and then now all of a sudden you got this connect and you just stop there. I don't want to go to jail there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what I started to notice is that, and even now, and the reason why I feel like it's more my purpose, and I have to lean into my purpose to show this generation behind me how do you evolve in it. Because just imagine, when I got in, it's just like Jordan versus LeBron, and things like that. You got to know that this generation is getting a way different type of money, so that comes with a way different type of power. So they're able to do things that we couldn't even do, and they're able to, like, just say, for instance, when you got money to throw around like that, you can make a lot of bad things happen.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? And if your mindset isn't to lead people the right way, then you already know what that is. And I do want to say this, because I don't want to sound like that I just had it figured out. Before the Recession album, which was maybe like 5 years of me doing music, I absolutely led hundreds of men the wrong way.
Right.
They would do anything for me, right? They would jump off a cliff. They would do anything. And I was out of control. And I didn't know where I was going. My GPS was not working. So I led them to where I started to figure out, if we keep going straight, we're going to fall off a cliff. Gosh. So let me figure out my life. Now, mind you, when I started to figure out certain things about myself and start to change things about myself, I don't think everybody around me was a fan of that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because people probably benefit from some of it.
Right.
The other thing, too, is that I just want to acknowledge one thing about you. It takes a lot of, it sounds like an overhoked word, but like, it takes a lot of courage to say what you're saying, to decide to make these decisions, because you could have continued to go down. It's hard to change things when the external results of your life are going pretty well.
Yes.
It's so difficult to do. But the internal part of your world was terrible,
Right.
but the external part of your world is going it's so difficult. Listen to me that you listen to this. When the external stuff's going well, but internally, you know, this is not right. I'm not happy. I'm not living right. This is not my legacy I want to have.
Right.
It takes major, you know what, to go, I'm going to stop this right now, even though it's producing money, it's producing fame, it's changed a lot of things. And sometimes things in life that are working for you, you think, well, that's why I'm successful. But maybe you're successful in spite of some of the things that end up making you win, right? I was thinking about the violence thing you said. A really good friend of mine, it's kind of a well-known thing, was renting the house to Pop Smoke when he got killed.
Yep.
And they were the owner of the house that he was renting.
Right.
And I was thinking about when you were just talking about that, how that industry that you're in still, to some extent, like is really dangerous for these young people still. I mean, it's a real thing. This is not for the cameras, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so and social media makes it different because it's easier to track people. It's easier to.
That's exactly what happened in that case.
Yeah, it's different. And I remember I had a party one time for Puff at my compound in Atlanta, and I didn't even know Pop, and he was standing like maybe where you are right there. And when I heard it, it just hit me different because I can only imagine this kid who's getting out of Brooklyn, who's got this chance to start him, and then you die in the hills of L.A. Yeah, just think about that. It's almost like it's almost like backwards. You would think you would die where you was at, and the reason why I lean into it so much is because they have to see an example of someone grow up in this. Because when I sit back and I think about Tupac, like, it's confusing because he was before his time, but I can only imagine what he would have been like if he would have still been here and made his 50s or wherever he's at. And I've been one of the lucky ones that have, you know, and I'm not going to try to dumb it down or nothing. Like, what I've been through, I don't think the average man can go through that. You know what I'm saying? And not just from the things that I was into, but just all the people that I've lost over the years. I can go into the thousands. You know, of people's, you know, the hundreds of funerals, the just so much. And what it did to me is, and what I've been working through now is, and we were talking about Lewis earlier, like me and him been really talking about it, just like, you know, it numbed me. Like it you know, I couldn't really understand what emotions were, right? Because once you lose people, and I talk about it in the book a lot, you just get this thing like, well, it wasn't me, so I got to keep going because you're running. You're just trying to keep running and staying alive. And over time, I just got this thing where I feel like people were complacent. You know what I'm saying? Because it was just, I just tried not to get too close or try not to show too much love because it's almost like you just never know, right?
Brother, in a weird way, this conversation's happened at such an interesting time. Without being personal, I will say Andy Frisell is a really good friend of mine.
Right.
We were talking this weekend about not the same thing, but connected to it. And we're both talking about how even at this stage of our lives, like, we're just running and we're running and running and running and running. And although not for the same reasons, but all my relationships, I feel like as I'm in the middle of this run, have just become really surface. There's no depth to my relationships.
Right.
And it's just like, I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. I'll get around. We were both saying, hey, man, like, we're best friends. We don't even see each other anymore. Like, it's on the phone. You all right, bro? Yeah, all right, bro.
Right.
And then, like, a year goes by.
Right.
And it's a part of life. Like, everyone's got to evaluate in a different way. Not the same thing as what you were going through. But, like, how much of your life are you putting on hold because you're in this run that maybe, like, some of these other things may matter more? Your friendships, your relationships, the things in your life that matter. You said GPS earlier. You got this thing that you write about your something GPS. I want you to
my mental GPS.
This is so good. I know what it is, but I wanted you to be able to say it.
Right. In my former job, I've been very successful.
Yes.
Right. And we call them plays. In one play, you could be you could have millions of dollars, and in one play, you send your money to the wrong place, you could be broke again.
Yeah.
Right. And I went through that so many times, of like having it, not having it, having it, not having it, not having it. I never robbed or took anything from anybody. I always was priding myself on like getting out and figuring it out. And what I started to notice is like even when I lost things, I would get it back like tenfold, right? Because I always had integrity. My grandmother raised me. She's a Christian woman, very serious. Sunday school, the whole nine.
You're such an interesting man. You're so interesting to me.
Easter speeches, the whole nine.
Okay.
And but she, you know, I really had a good heart. I just got caught up in the streets, right? And one thing that I started to realize is if I just keep my integrity and my name is good and my reputation is good, I can always figure out how to get it back around. Because one thing that I did learn about, like in business, if your reputation is good and you're a good person and you pour into people, no matter what it may be, even at your hardest time, somebody might just point you at the right person or send you in the right direction because they know you're good. And the reason why I call it mental GPS, I feel like there will never be a time in my life where if I lost it all tomorrow that I couldn't get it back, right? Because I know I understand it and I know how to get back where I left, right? And then to keep on that path. And when you from where we from, when you lose it, people go bad. You know what I'm saying? Not like Wall Street where they jump off buildings, but they'll rob their brother. Like they'll take from their take from their best friend. You know what I'm saying? They'll and not just take. I've seen situations where people murder their closest friends. You know what I'm saying? Or kidnap kids or whatever. And it's just like when you're in a life like that, it's hard not to. Because the sad thing is like the culture respects violence. More so than money. And it's just like either you're gonna be a leader that leads with evolution, or you're gonna be a leader that leads with violence, and that's how it works. You know what I'm saying? So there's not a lot of leaders that lead with evolution, right? Because those are the ones that something. You ever heard like when we talk, we say, "Wow, the good guys got to go." Yeah. Those are the ones that get killed.
It's interesting you say that. The ones that lead with evolution end up experiencing the violence.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
We're both thinking. I was thinking of Dr. King, right?
Yeah, same thing.
When you said it.
Same thing.
Malcolm
And even
X.
some of these kids in like Nipsey Hussle.
Great
It's
example.
one of my great, Nipsey Hussle, we used to trade books. Nipsey he had a heart of gold. And when you look at his situation, you can't help but think like, how could, like this was somebody that was pouring back into the community, but he was leading with evolution.
Yeah.
Right. And the guys that lead with violence, end up being in these situations where, they live longer.
So, as a result of that, I watched an interview you did, and you said, I really don't trust anybody.
Right.
And then the host pushed you a little bit, and you're like, well, that was my former life. And I watched, I said, nope, he still doesn't really trust anybody. Like, if we're being really, really honest, like, let's just cut to
right.
I don't think you really completely trust anybody even right now.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
But I find myself opening up more and being transparent. But I still have to keep, what kept me, even though it doesn't serve me that much in this life, I'm learning to trust and to understand and to get only quality people around. Because when you have only quality people around, it's easy for them to show you that they can be trusted to a certain extent. But I will tell you that 98% of the people that I let in my life have burnt me some type of way. You know what I'm saying? And to the point where I'm just like, I already knew that was going to happen. Why did I even go there?
Yep.
And my reason, I think, for not trusting is I've never, outside of my grandmother, I've never experienced someone who gave me unconditional love.
Yep.
Right? And I never experienced someone that gave me like full transparency.
Yep.
And, I used to live out of survival and fear, you know what I'm saying? But I try now to live more out of love. But, I still can't, like Nipsey Hussle, like, I can't think that I'm exempt to what is going on because I'm still a part of that culture. Yep. So I have to still, it's almost like being a soldier. If you go to, Afghanistan or whatever and you come back, you still have that mentality that I got to protect myself and my family if something happens because I know how to do that.
I knew today was going to be good, but I didn't know it would be this good.
Oh,
no, I mean it.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something, like when you're this honest, you pull honesty out of me and other people. And here's the truth. So I'm not a part of that culture, but I'm a part of life.
Right.
And I think that, again, that culture is like a microcosm, a compressed version of what the rest of life is about.
Correct.
And if I'm being really honest, same with me. I think even saying 98 is a generous number.
Right. It might be like 99, right?
9.7324, right?
Right.
Like, and I think what I landed on was I'm going to be trustworthy, but I'm pretty guarded with my trust.
Right.
And life has proven to me
right.
that. And by the way, what's cool about that conclusion is that it's caused me to try to search for where can I trust, and for me that's God.
Right.
Right. Like I don't put my faith in a man.
I got to tell you about that too.
Please do, because that's what I've reached to. Please go ahead. What were you going to say?
I mean, I must say, like, I don't know what's been going on with me lately. You know what I'm saying, in like the last year, but I used to pray all the time because my grandmother taught me to pray, but I never heard anything. Right. I never. But like lately, like I might be like meditating, and he talks to me constantly. I love it. And I'm serious, like to the point, like it almost scares me sometimes, right? And you know, nobody's perfect, right? So as long as I walk with God, I know I'll be good, right? But people and the type of people that he's brought in my life, like it's crazy. Like you wouldn't believe the type of people that call me, check on me or whatever. And a lot of them don't understand where I come from and what I've been through. So, they might not understand some of my mannerisms sometimes, but I make sure when I'm with them, I let them know that I'm really there for them, and they're there for me. But what I've noticed, and you said about trust, is like I trust that God is gonna make sure it's good, but I still gotta watch the front door for us. You know what I'm saying? I just can't let anybody in the front door.
Yes,
because that's our sacred space, and it's so interesting because you can look at any part of life. I'm quite sure anybody can say that they don't really have people that they can trust. And the thing about coming from like where we come from, especially where I come from, I can't even say that about some of my closest family. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, you would think you can trust your uncles. You would think that you can trust, you know what I'm saying? And all these different things. And my older brother died when we was younger. So I had to be the oldest, right? So I had to kind of jump out there head first. And my experience with it just put me in a place where I just put up all these boundaries, right? Yeah. And what I'm starting to notice lately is that, that wall that I put up, it protected me. It kept everything out. Kept everything out. Well, kept everything in, but it also kept a lot of stuff out. So a lot of my blessings that were supposed to come to me, they were out by the wall because I was blocking them, right? Oh, boy. So I didn't take the wall down. Yeah. I just took like the first 3 layers off so I could see over the wall, I could see.
Look at that.
Right.
That's such a perfect description.
Right.
By the way, that is such a perfect description.
Right.
Because if you don't let people in, you are keeping out so many blessings in your life.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like for me, like, by the way, taking a few of those bricks, those levels off the wall is exactly what I've done. Like you're saying things that either I haven't had the confidence to say or the ability to say that I totally agree with. I love when I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, because it hits my heart, like that's truth.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's truth, what he just said. That's what I've done too. And almost a little bit, other than with God, I trust but verify. I don't have to verify with God. That's already been verified for me. Right. And I also trust God will bring people into my life that can get close to me. But I also believe there's free will, there's free choice.
Right.
And he's going to teach us lessons in life. There are Judases in our lives, right? That's part of the stories of the Bible, or whatever your faith might be.
Right.
There's that. There's also, though, it's really interesting. You could have written a book about a lot of things. You wrote one about adversity.
Yes.
And I'm like, because there's a ton of topics you could have done about, overcoming limiting beliefs, overcoming your environment, because you transcended an environment, which is very rare in life. Why is adversity the topic of the book, and why did you think this is the thing I want to talk about?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. That's what I pride myself in. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be that adversity specialist, if you will.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going. That's my purpose. My purpose is to continue to evolve no matter what, but to continue to give that information back to my culture and to my people, and to be an example of what it's like to come out of that. Because every situation that I've been in, and it's funny that we was talking about God, I don't care how crazy it got, he always put somebody in my life around the time that I needed some information or an ear or a connection or just a process. It never fails, right? And I truly believe that he does that for me to show people that you can maintain your integrity and be a solid individual and still survive, right?
I love it.
You know, without doing anything that would go against who you are as a man, and then your legacy. Because you know, when you think about some of the great leaders, they did great things, right? But their integrity is what kept you locked into them, right? Because you got people that's successful, but they did a lot of foul things, and when you hear people talk about them, you're like, wow, I never knew that.
I know.
And adversity to me is that small glare of hope. Because if I tell you what I went through in this book, your life might be totally different, but you might be up against the same odds.
I can tell you that that's the truth. My life is totally different than yours.
Right.
But I see, great storytellers tell me stories with a you meaning.
Right.
So as I read your work, I didn't grow up like that,
Right.
but I have my version of it in my life.
Right.
And so the lessons in the book, the lessons in this conversation, I don't care what someone's life story is.
Right.
These are facts. Like,
Right.
you said something so important, that God has sent you that person when you needed him, the
Right.
information, the insight, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I want everybody to hear this man said this, and the reason that I want you to hear it is he does that for you too. The difference is you need to be in expectation that he's going to and aware that he's going to, because he has probably sent those people to you previously in your life, and if you're not aware he's doing it or open to the possibility he's doing it, you will miss them.
Yeah.
You will miss them. It's like that analogy of the people that are sitting on the roof during the flood. Someone comes by and says, hey, jump on the boat. Nope, I'm waiting for God to save me.
Right.
Somebody else comes by in a boat. I'm waiting for God to save me. Third guy comes by in a boat. I'm waiting for God to save me. Then they drown, and they get to heaven, and they go, God, I thought you were going to save me. He goes, I sent three damn
boats.
people in a boat.
3 boats.
Get
and
in
a
the
puppy.
damn boat, right? And so there's you have to be in expectation that God is going to send you a blessing at some point.
Right.
But if you're not looking for it and expecting it,
Right.
you don't hear them or see them or
Right.
feel them, and then you miss them.
You have to be in a good place too, though. You have to be in a good place with yourself. I really realized that, because there was times that I wasn't in a good place with myself, and it was just a bunch of noise. I let things on the outside of me control my emotions, how I felt. You know what I'm saying? I just had to come to a place where, and I'm not there yet, of course, but I just started to understand what peace was like, to get a little taste of that. And I started to understand what going inward was about. Because the minute I started going inward, everything changed, right? Because now I can't fault anyone in my life for what they done to me. I have to look inside and see how I reacted or what I've done to contribute to that, right? And I can't blame anyone else, right? And for me, when I started to understand that is when things started to slow down, right? Because I wasn't present. I go have conversations with people. It's all on the surface. Yeah, it's all good, whatever. I'm gone. But then I started taking time, like, to look people in their eyes and be like, "Are you all right, man? How you feeling? Like, what's going on?" And I started to have conversations where I wasn't, leading all of the conversation. Like,
exactly what you mean.
just tell me, how you feeling? What's going on? And when people came to me, and I pride myself on having a lot of advice. That's just like my thing. I think I'm like, the therapist among the crew. You know what I'm saying? But I ask him. I ask him now, though. I say, one is, do you want me to just listen? You know what I'm saying? 2 is, do you want me to tell you what I think? Or 3 is, do you want me to side with you? Because I could do that too. You know what I'm saying? So I could be like, oh, that's crazy. That should have never happened. And I started to understand because, where we come from, it's hard for somebody to tell you how they really feel. It took me until I was 40 to tell somebody I was sad or I was depressed. You know what I'm saying? Think about that. Or I don't feel confident about this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or that I might be, concerned.
Yeah.
Because when you're that guy, you have to.
Can't show weakness.
Yeah, you can't show anything.
You said earlier, I'm depressed. I'm drinking.
Right.
I'm drinking a bottle of champagne in the morning,
Right.
moving to tequila in the afternoon.
Right.
You're eating. You're heavy.
Yeah.
Right. You're stressed. You're worried. You're running. Is there any one thing you did, or was there any one moment, or was it just an accumulation of things you're like, that's enough. I can't do this anymore?
I would say this. I didn't have a purpose before then.
Hmm.
I was just chasing money and trying to get out of my situation. And he did that. God did that for me. He took me out of my situation. And I'm 4 albums in, about 8 million records sold.
Crazy.
Like, but what am I doing for him? How am I continuing his message? What am I doing? He took me out of a situation where I could have had a life sentence. It was there. I still don't know how I dodged that, by the way. I think about that all the time, but it was there, right? And I've lost, so many people. And I sat there and I'm just like, yo, like, right now, I'm the issue. I need to work on myself because the things that I have going on inside of me is no way to lead anyone, right? And I'm making music. So I got millions of people listening to me and listening to what I'm saying. I'm not a saint, but I do got common sense, right? And it's just like I'm saying things that might affect people in different ways. But I'm like, and my thing is the audio got to match the video, right? So I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying this stuff, but I'm doing something else, right? And I got to get on line with what I'm saying, right? So now I'm walking into, and it was the scariest thing in my life. And by the way, just so we clear, like, I was met with a moment where I knew it was a moment. Meaning my first album came out, I was selling, and this is statute of limitations, by the way, anybody listen, I'm good. I talked to my lawyers about it. And I had to make a decision, which was one of the biggest decisions. I had to make a decision what I was gonna do because I was trying to balance the streets and music. And I had some small piece of success and I had to walk away cold turkey from the streets. Now, mind you, that means depend on music, right? And when I did that, I had 3 of those Nextel chirp phones. That's what we used to talk on. Yep. And all those phones had a lot of money on them. Like people owed me money. And I woke up and I just said, I'm not doing this no more. I put the phones in the bag, threw them in the trash bin in my building, and I walked away, right? And that was like my first, like, okay, I'm going to do this music stuff. Now, mind you, about 8 months later, I'm performing at a show and tear my vocal cords. Now, I can't talk.
Oh my God.
I got a record deal with a major label.
Oh my God.
I can't talk. I got shows booked up from here to 2000, whatever. I can't go on the stage. And that was the first time he humbled me. He humbled me. He humbled me. He humbled me. And I had to really look at this and go, I'm so close. This could happen. What do I need to do? And that was just a lot of praying, a lot of confusion. And then he let me live. I got a throat surgery that I didn't have insurance at the time. Imagine, I had Lamborghinis, all this stuff, and no health insurance. Imagine that. So I had to pay for my surgery with cash. And then I got back out there. And I started the same thing. And then that's when he hit me again with Bell's palsy.
Oh my God.
He hit me with Bell's palsy in my face.
For real.
Yeah, my face
I know.
got crooked and my mouth was, and it was like my eye was shut.
Was that from stress?
That was God. Because he let me live again. And I went back out and started doing the same thing and was going about it the same way. And after that, I was just like, you know what, man, I got to change something because I've been too blessed. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm looking at it and I'm going like, the next thing might not even be something I can recover from. And that's what started me to just start to understand that I got to start fixing some of my ways. And it first started with like a lot of like personal stuff I would do. Like, I came from a situation where if you sit down with somebody, it's like sitting down and you're being interrogated. I'm not going to tell you the truth. You know what I'm saying? I can't. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's against the code and it might get me in a lot of trouble. But then I started to notice that a grown man should never lie, even if it's going to get him out of trouble. You know what I'm saying? So now I got to change this. And that wasn't easy to do because I was taught to say whatever I had to say to get out of any situation. And now I'm having to work through this. And that was like the first step. And then it started going on different steps. And when I got to a place where I started to answer your question, when I started to realize that I gotta do some work, right? I didn't know where. I didn't know where to start. I just started YouTubing stuff, talking to older people, telling I had my business partner. Now he's been my business partner for like 20 years. I would just go sit with him and tell him what's really going on. I'm like, man, I got about 5 people trying to kill me. I got beef with these guys over here and that, and then this is happening. That was I was in the shootout last week, and now this is that, and I got to go to California, and this is happening. And he's just like, okay, just calm down. Okay, what are you concerned about most? And then we started to like work through problems, and he's like, okay, have you ever thought about reaching out to them and just having a conversation? But my thing was, they're the opposition, so I gotta press. Because I can't let my guys think that I'm trying to sort all these things out. And I just started to understand that there is a such thing called conflict resolution. So that started to help me out a little bit as far as my life. And now I got in a space where I started having a little peace, and I was able to start like working on myself, like my health and reading books and just all these different things. And that thirst for knowledge kicked back in because I hate learning in school. When I was in school, like I dropped out of school in the 6th grade. I got my GED when I was in boot camp.
That's crazy.
Right. And then around that time, it just hit me again. I just had this thirst for like knowledge. And I just started going around asking people questions. And think about this now. It went from me asking, somebody that I knew that worked at a restaurant that I just felt like had some type of prestige. From that point to me calling John Maxwell and going, hey, I got 7 questions I need to ask you. You know John, he like, shoot him at me. Yeah, to Robert Greene, to Robin Sharma, to all these different people. Tony Robbins. Yeah. And all these, and not to like name drop, but it's just like, I'm getting this information now to give back to the culture. Yep. Because I'm able to go outside of my comfort zone and get it. But this stuff helps me with my life as well. Like we was talking about Lewis earlier. But I've always been that type of person. So to answer your question, I got the information from the people that I respected at the time that I was able to mingle with. And I don't come as my reputation exceeds me. Meaning like I don't come, and by the way, the most gangsters guys where I'm from are the coolest guys you ever see. Yeah. They're not loud. They're not boisterous. Right. They're like Denzel in American Gangster. They're real smooth, but they will reach out and touch you.
I can tell you, this is like an all-time great conversation. It's all-time great conversation. A lot of things about you that I noticed. One is like how self-aware you are. Just driving out here. It's like, I think you were here today. Like there's millions of people who are going to be like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But at the same time, lately on this show, God sends me the right person in that seat for me. Like I've got some stuff going on in my life right now that's not great, and some of it's betrayal stuff with other people, like we're talking about. Wow. However, I was just talking to somebody, actually someone that's producing a TV show I'm doing right now. Literally before you got here, I was driving out here, and I said, I want to figure out what God's trying to teach me with this lesson. And that's one of the things you said earlier is like, what am I supposed to be learning from this? What am I supposed to be? I'm not going to get nothing for, Eric Thomas says all the time, you better get something for your pain. Right. And the other thing you do very well is a lot of times when you begin to teach things you're learning, you begin to own them more. So a lot of you that are learning things, listening to the show, you don't teach it enough to other people. And the more you begin to teach it, the more you actually begin to live it. Right. People think, I can't teach any of this until I'm living it. No, you could say, look, I'm not good at this yet, but this is what I'm learning. Right. And the more you begin to teach something, I've found in my own life, like not everything I've taught all the time I was doing at the time, but I was honest enough to say I wasn't. Right. This isn't me yet. Right. But let me tell you, this is what so-and-so gave me advice on or what I know I need to change about me. And the more I taught things, the more I own them. The other thing I've always wanted to know about you, and I know the answer because it's in the book and in interviews you've done, but of all the people you collaborated with, one of the other things that holds people back in addition to, and by the way, I want to step back, you play such an important role in culture right now because of what you just said. There are not enough people reaching people in the communities you come from or young people with this knowledge and information. The world's different. This isn't 30 years ago where you could just get a Tony Robbins tape. Right. There are dudes like me, guys like you, people like John, that this information's there. Right. But it's not what most people from these communities are consuming on their feed every single day. Right. And the fact that you're saying, hey, listen, I come from this, let me teach you this. And this could be someone from a particular culture, particular age group, particular part of the world. That's why I do this. This isn't, podcasting is not a big source of revenue for me. I mean, like I got businesses.
That's real.
Right? But what it is for me is, and by the way, serious, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're in the middle of a negotiation right now. That's a whole other story. But having said that, But I want to make sure that I acknowledge you and the role that you're playing. And again, this combination,
I received that.
It's a fact. And the combination of your humility with your confidence is crazy. Having said that on the confidence thing, I always wanted to know this. You find yourself performing with Jay-Z or you're in the studio with Kanye or whatever. And I know the answer because I know, but I want them to hear this. You had, and then you didn't really start in music. It's not like you had to have some massive imposter syndrome at some point. Like, do I belong with these dudes? And then didn't you have stylistically a little bit different routine in the studio than other people would use, right? Like, so, because a lot of people listen to this are like, I don't relate to the story, but I relate to the emotional part of it, of chaos, of behave in a way that doesn't serve me, of creating more stress in my life. And I also relate to the imposter part of this thing. You sold millions of records. You've literally collaborated with like the best of the best, which makes you one of them.
Right.
So like, did you suffer from that? Like, what am I, dude, that's Kanye right there. Like, what am I doing? Did you have some of that? And stylistically, I think in the studio, like not everything you did was the way they did things, right?
Well, I recorded unorthodox because I was never taught how to record, right? So I didn't really, I knew music, but I didn't know how to actually put it together. Okay. So a lot of what I was doing, it's like being on a golf course and you see a bunch of people hit, you just pick up some type of swing. They're like, you're not holding your grip right. So I'm doing that, and but the thing about it was the soul was in it, like the truth was in it. And I realized earlier it ain't what you say, it's how you say it, right? And I wanted to flag on another point too. What I realized early is that a lot of these people are very talented. Like they can put words together, put songs together that you can never believe, right? But for me, it's the way that it's packaged up, right? And like you were saying earlier about all these people that I've met, they have the word, but I'm the vessel, so I'm the translator. So they give it to me, and then I process it, and then I package it up, and then I give it to them as something that they can digest. So that's with the knowledge. But with the music, I understood that I was talking to a specific group of people who really were the tastemakers and the ones that really had influence before influencers. These were the street guys that were running their cities and their town. And we all had this code that we spoke in because we couldn't let the authorities into our culture of how we talk, because that could get you 15, 20, 30 years just for talking on the phone. So I can have a whole conversation with you right now, and we can make a play from Mexico to D.C. to Chicago, and we could just be having a regular conversation, and nobody else would know that. But what I knew going into it is I knew the code, right? I knew this unspoken language, so I figured out how to put it in the music because I'm talking to those people who understand it. And they're the tastemakers. They're the ones that know. They're like, oh, he's one of us. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And Jay-Z and them understood that because Jay-Z used to be from the streets as well. And a lot of things about Jay that I like is that I saw him on the road because I was a Jay-Z fan. I'm not going to front like when I was in the hood. But what I loved about him was that he was always evolving. So when I met Jay, when he became the president of Def Jam, I didn't look at him as an artist. I looked at him as somebody that I can learn how to survive from. Because the music part didn't even matter. He's surviving. Like he is in a place where he's got outside of rap. He can do whatever he wants to do, and he's growing up in this. I never seen anybody else grow up in this and keep their integrity and build their brand. That's what I wanted to learn from Jay. So I understood that. Now, Kanye West was different because Kanye was more so an artist, and I knew that, but he respected what I done because I brought Kanye West out at this thing that we call Birthday Bash. It's like the biggest show in Atlanta. It's like 20, 30,000 people. And we had a record together called Put On. He never been in front of that many people that are like street people. You know what I'm saying? His audience was, it was more broad. But he wanted that. We all do. You know what I'm saying? And I put him in front of that. And I noticed that when he was working on his album, Heartbreaks, 808s and Heartbreaks, he called me. He's like, yo, I need you to come out to Hawaii. And I was like, what for? So when I get out to Hawaii, he has this chalkboard out there, and it said, what would Jeezy do? And he had all his songs on there. He was playing the songs. He would watch what I would bob my head to. And he told me, he said, you understand how to talk to them in a way that they understand. And it's simple. Because it is. You have a conversation with somebody, you got to mean what you say what you mean. But there's a way you talk to them where they feel like, okay, he's with us, right? He's not, and I was able to do that in a way that they understood that was my win. Because it was my win. That was my win. I was basically talking to the streets. Everybody understood what I was saying. And if you didn't know street lingo, you was kind of out of the conversation. And everybody wanted to be in the conversation. And the imposter syndrome, I don't think I've ever had imposter syndrome. I've been around people that I felt like they wasn't who they say they are. And that's what confused me, because I was doing everything that I said I was doing in my music. So I feel like everybody should be that way. And when I started to get around certain people, I'm like, oh, this is a persona. This is an act. This is like WWF. Like, I didn't realize that. But I'm like, oh, what does that mean for me then? Am I doing the wrong thing? Or am I doing the right thing? Because I'm living this. Like, I would live and die for this. You know, Nelson Mandela. Like, this is it. And this is all I know. And I started getting places like that where and this probably was a bigger mistake than anything, I kind of isolated myself from the culture of music. I'm probably the only person that do this that people don't really know. Like, the people that I hang around every day are like regular people, you know what I'm saying? Or people that I respect as far as their mental state. But you're not gonna catch me in an entourage of like rappers. Like, that ain't what I do, because I don't consider myself a rapper. I consider myself a man that's on a journey, you know what I'm saying, on the journey of healing, on the journey of learning, on the journey of understanding to show my culture. Like, you can't let people box you in and just tell you. Like, when this is all said and done, I'm not gonna just be a great musician. You know, I could be a great father, brother, cousin, uncle, whatever, but I just can't be this one thing. And once I started to understand that, I just put myself in because I want people to understand this is what a grown man from the struggle is supposed to look like. And you take your wounds and you make it wisdom, right? And for me, it was just like, that was the only imposter syndrome. I was feeling like they wasn't like me. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. they wasn't the real deal. Like, that's how I took it, because it's almost like you don't even believe in that, what you're saying. You like, you know, it's almost like a costume. You putting these chains on, you putting these things on, and you're going out here, but you wasn't like that in your former life. I was like that in my former life. I bought a Rolex at 14 years old. You know what I'm saying? I had Lexuses back then. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everybody that was from where I'm from knew that that's how I was really living, and that's how I was really, you know, conducting myself, right? So when I got into the music was just a way to, you know, to amplify that, but I still had what it takes to survive in the streets. And if you go to any penitentiary, any neighborhood, anywhere that anybody congregates on survival, they know who I am.
They know you.
Right. And they know when nobody sees me out like, yo, I love the last album you did. No, it's just like, hey, bro, you changed my life. I love you, man. I'm praying for you. I just want the best for you, man. And, you know, protect Jeezy at all costs. And that's the part that I can't let him down with. So that's why I refuse to give up that part of me that's who I am as an authentic person, just to fit in somewhere. So when you see the music thing going around, like, you might not see me there. You know what I'm saying? I
started out by saying, I introduced you with, I said, this man has tremendous dimension and depth.
Right.
Am I right, everybody? Am I right? This is not what you would have expected just from this conversation. Right. Let me ask you one last thing. By the way, I've enjoyed this so much. Do another book so I can have you back.
Oh, for sure.
By the way, you don't even need a book to come back.
Come back.
But I would like to continue this conversation because I feel like we're just scratching the surface of you.
For sure.
I also have a funny feeling that if I see you, we're going to be friends now.
For sure.
Obviously, we've been in each other's phones, but we're going to be friends now.
I like it, yeah.
I have a funny feeling that in a year there'll be an even different version of you sitting in front of me. That's the thing that I'm most excited about with you. Is this all worth it? So you've been through a lot. Like, take someone into success. Lastly, like, what if it was worth it? What parts of it are worth it? Like, you know, obviously for you, if you didn't get out of where you were, you're probably dead.
Right.
So in that sense, it's definitely worth it.
Right.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, let people on the inside of success. So let's just look. Here's how most people look at success. They want to have some fame. They want to have famous friends. They want to have a bunch of money. You were just down in Cabo fishing, doing your thing. You've had all the cars. You've probably dabbled and had some nice experiences with ladies in your life. You've been able to party and do whatever the heck you want. You've had to do a lot of sacrificing and stuff too, though. So was all of it worth it? And if it was, why? Like, what parts of it are worth it, and what parts of it aren't what you would think it's all cracked up to be? Good question, huh?
Great question. Yeah. I think when you say worth it, I say absolutely, because everything that I've been through has molded me and shaped me to be the person that I am, right? The man that I am. And, you know, when you're in the wild and you see a lion and you see his mane and you see his eyes and you see the way he protects the pride, right? He's been through some things. He's been fighting his whole life, but he's there to protect them. And in a weird way, I feel like I'm here to protect my culture. Because there's no big homies. Everybody gets rich and they go. Nobody gives back. Nobody, like, and I don't mean like money. I mean like nobody pushes hope and knowledge and all this stuff into these kids. They just go get their money and go live their life. And the reason why I say it's worth it is because if I hadn't went through what I went through, I don't think I would know the type of people that I know, right? And able to have those conversations, right? And if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have enough credibility to even speak for us. You feel what I'm saying? It's just like, how could you, you know, it's like being when you like a general, but you went to college and you never had any wartime in, and then you get on the battlefield and try to tell people how to do. That doesn't work. The only part that I think that I feel like I'm still struggling with, was it worth it, is because when I was in the streets, I put a wedge between me and my mother. Of course, we had a toxic relationship, but I put a wedge in between us because I loved her, and my sister as well. But I always felt like if I went to prison, I don't know what that was gonna be like if I truly like was connected to them the way that I was supposed to be. So I kind of, you know, put a wedge in between us and just went and lived my life. Like I was just doing the things that I was doing because I felt like if I go to prison, at least I'm not gonna feel like, I'm not gonna tell on nobody because I can't, but I'm not gonna be in there like going through it because I already done compartmentalized, you know, my family, which I had to started doing that a lot, like compartmentalizing things, and I was good at it, right? It worked for me.
Keeping it cold almost.
Right, keeping it cold.
Yep.
So that's the only thing I feel like for me. And then I think the only other part is like, you know, life is crazy, man. Like it's like, it's so real when you from where we from, man. And I just think that all the people I lost, I wish I could have loved them better, right? I could have gave them more of me because, you know, I just lost one of my friends maybe about about 8 months ago. It's one of my great friends, and he was a good dude, family guy, 4 kids, and he owned a local club in the city. And I've lost, you know, thousands of people, you know, just through people I know and other, you know, just over my lifespan, right? But that one hit me the hardest because I'm like, how is somebody in my age bracket, very successful, and still being murdered and killed? And it hit me different because I'm like, I talked to him about maybe a couple of weeks before this happened, and I didn't even think to ask him how he's doing or is he straight. So when you say worth it, I think what I'm able to give back is worth it. But I think that the relationships that I danced over, I don't think that part was worth it because these are good people, right? Yeah. And now, you know, I got to live with that. But going forward, I make sure that I'm connected, talking to people and doing the right things. But I can definitely tell you this, because I want to end on this one. The girls weren't worth it. The cars weren't worth it. You know, the money wasn't worth it. The lifestyle wasn't worth it. Like, none of that stuff is going to matter when you're gone, bro. Like, and the way that people idolize and put these things on a pedestal, none of that can compare to, like, real people and real love and real friendships and just really building, bro. So I'm going to leave that there, you know.
You're a good man.
Thank you, brother.
You're
Thank
a good
you. I
man.
received that.
I admire you. I'm really proud of you too.
Thank you, brother.
I really enjoyed today a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us into your world too, because the vast majority of people listening to this don't understand that world.
Right.
And I do think, again, I'll say it for the third time, I think there are some parallels that are unbelievable to the rest of life. I was picturing you talking earlier, and I was just thinking about this. Like, we started out with your mom with, you know, having a gun to your head and all that stuff as a young man. Yep. And I'm just picturing, because there's this clip I think of when I think about you, which is when Obama did it a couple times, but Obama shouted you out like at the Correspondents' Dinner.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about how remarkable life can be, that this young boy, this young man who's living in this situation where he's in the streets, he's surviving, he's buying a Rolex at 14, his mom's got a gun to his head. Somehow that young man ends up having as a young man, but particularly a young black man, having the first black president shouting him out and saying his name. It's like, if that's possible, anything in life is totally possible.
Yes.
And then to go from what you were doing and how you were living to now being one of the most, I think, important men in culture, influencing a part of culture with your message, your wisdom, your insight, paying it forward, continually to pull from one world and giving it to the other. Is just awesome, man. It's
Thank
just
you,
something
brother.
to be so you're a blessing, and I'm grateful
I
for you.
received that, brother.
Yeah, it's a fact. All right, everybody. I told you.
Yeah.
This is one of these. I started out with an intro, and then from the very first second, it just did better than what I told you it was going to be. This happened when it was supposed to. We were supposed to do this a while ago, and I couldn't do it, and you couldn't do it. The timing was absolutely perfect.
Thank you, Ed. Continue to do what you're doing, brother. Yeah. We love you. We're listening. Just keep pouring in, brother. We here.
Likewise.
Thank you, brother.
Likewise, brother. Love you. Hey, share the episode, everybody. God bless you. Max out.